This is Stories from Women in Tech, coming to you from level 343. And for our first episode, I thought that it would be good to kick things off by getting stories from Gabriella Sannino, who, of course, is Queen Bee at level 343.
Bonjour.
So thank you, Gabby, for participating in Level
Absolutely.
343's Stories from Women in Tech. I have a few questions for you. As a little intro, in recent years, you've become extremely well known for your SEO expertise and services, but you have also spent a considerable amount of time in the corporate world as well before you went to SEO. Give us a 10,000-foot look at your background and how you came to the SEO industry.
I started out in marketing and advertising. And marketing and advertising back in the late 80s, early 90s, the internet was still, a thing that most people said it'll never take off, and we don't want to put our information online. And so we were still kind of battling, that aspect of the World Wide Web. But I always knew that it was going to take off. It was just a sense in my gut. I mean, the internet was just so exciting. It was so, revolutionary with the way we communicate from, one part of the world to the other part, even though the world hadn't grasped onto it. But I was one of the pioneers, if you will, that hooted and hollered at the agency that, we really need to start, placing some of these clients online and having them, put on a website, and they always thought, oh, website is just a business card. Yeah, back then maybe it was. But it still had a reach that print didn't have unless you put a lot of money into it. Radio, television, all of that. I mean, cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for a campaign. And now with the internet, you take, 98% of your cost of what it used to cost for a campaign. We had campaigns from Volkswagen. We had campaigns from Benetton. These were like global. And this was an agency out of New York. So, of course, the clientele was a little different. They had, hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend. Anyway, make a long story short, I knew in my heart, once I got to California, that the internet was the way to go. And sure enough, the .bomb is what I call it, started, or I should say the .com, but the .bomb. And so I jumped on the bandwagon. I started out with startup companies, and we were using SEO, but not realizing it was called SEO because we knew the message had to resonate with the readers and with the people that actually came on the site. And it wasn't until about 8 years or maybe 9 years ago that I realized we were doing SEO. And so corporate, left New York, came out here and dove into the World Wide Web and haven't looked back since.
Let's talk about women in the SEO industry and in the online and tech industries specifically. Kind of a broad question with a smaller question nestled in there. How do you feel women are perceived in the SEO industry? And as a follow-up, are there any challenges you face which you attribute directly or indirectly to your gender?
Wow. There's a lot of buzz about women in the industry. As you know, I started a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago. I started out with honoring Women Wednesday, which I thought, because I'm on Twitter and, they're all hashtags were starting to become real popular back then. And so as a woman-owned business and as a woman in the high-tech industry, I just didn't feel there was enough recognition. And so when I started to do a little more research about the SEO women in the industry, I noticed there was nothing. I mean, even though they were out there, there was really nothing or no one really speaking about women in the SEO industry. So from Honoring Women Wednesday, I dove into Top SEO Women, which we started back in 2010. at the beginning, everybody was real positive about it, but then there were the younger women, the women that were just starting to come out into the SEO industry, who took offense to it and thought that I was putting a wall, a divide of, why should I focus on women? Why don't I just focus on the industry? And I thought that's really kind of odd. Here I am trying to give us a little more, footprint, whether socially or going to conferences and really, voting for women to speak at conferences. And the feedback was, at the beginning it was great, and then it became really mixed. And then I got into a heated argument online with a couple of women in the SEO industry, a couple of women who asked me to remove them from the list because they didn't want to be. I don't know if they used the word sexist, but it was in that genre of, this is why women don't come out in the industry, because of people like you that wants to different. And I'm trying to say, hey, look, I'm not saying women are smarter in SEO. I'm just saying women have a different approach because we are women. So why not embrace that and rejoice it? I did it for a couple of years after that, and then I thought, okay, I think it's lived its life. I battled through it, and now we're doing this. And so now we're getting into the technical aspect of women in technology. Because, again, as you know, there's more to SEO than there's more to online marketing than just SEO. So we're opening the doors, and we're hoping to get, wonderful feedback from this series.
Yeah,
so hope that answers your question.
It very much
if I
so.
didn't babble off somewhere.
No, that was perfect. That's so interesting. It almost sounds like, I've encountered, there's, how many waves of feminism do we have now? 1, 2, 3. Are we on our third wave? And now the youngs, even celebrities like Shailene Wooley, who I'm heartbroken. She was on the cover of Bust a month or two ago, and I was all like, yay. And then she comes out and she talks about how feminism is bad, and feminism is all about hating men and trying to take power away from them.
Yeah, I've been hearing that more and more. I mean, these kids, they think that being a feminist means you hate men.
Yeah.
I don't hate men.
No, that's not, and there's bad apples in every bunch, but it is interesting to see the younger generation having, it's turned into the F word, which is heartbreaking, because feminism is, now that everything is so subtle and it's so hard to put your finger on, it's more necessary than ever. From my perspective, as a young, I'm not quite as young as some of the women in this industry anymore.
Sure.
But so that's interesting that you've encountered almost that, fourth wave of anti-feminism, even and especially within the women online.
Exactly. Because here I thought they would embrace it and they'd be real excited about it. And some women, the women in my generation, because we're kind of like the first wave.
Yeah.
The women in my generation that are 50 and above. Yeah. We've been doing this for 20, 30 years. And we've been battling it, and we've been kind of almost making the way for the new women to come in and not have to deal with the old crap. But they're screwing it up for themselves because they're like, we don't want to be, sexist, and we want to embrace. And I'm thinking, I don't think we're being sexist. I'm just bringing light to the fact that we are women, we are strong, we are smart, we're innovative. We think differently, we approach problems differently. Even to this day, I've worked with men and women, and I see a huge difference between men and women, the way they approach a problem. So do I prefer to work with one or the other? No. It depends on the project. But I think these younger women are really kind of, I don't want to say disrespecting, but lack of a better word, they're disrespecting who they are by saying, feminism means that you hate men. No, it means that you stand on your own 2 feet and you have something to say. And you're not to be put in a cubby hole the way you were 10, 15, even 5 years ago. they'll come around. They'll come around to figuring out what feminism is for them.
Well, once they get out of their happy college bubble, or their first internships, and say, God forbid, even try to be entrepreneurs and go out on their own, they'll probably figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I know that I did, and it took me several years actually to figure out that that's what was going on. It took me the longest time. I used to attribute it to my personality and I'm being too abrasive and all of these things until I finally figured out, no, it's just a man's world and you don't fit the mold.
Exactly. And when you wake up to that, you realize, because, just like you, I tried to be a little less aggressive, or maybe you didn't, I don't know. But I really tried to hone who I was. And it just, I would sit through meetings and I'd have this pit in my stomach because I wanted to say something, but then I didn't want everybody staring at me, because I'm already shy, and for everybody to just look at me like, how dare you go against what, John Doe is saying. Mm-hmm. And I would go home with just sick. I mean, I was really just sick. And now I don't have to do that anymore. I just don't. I say exactly what I think. And guess what? They like it. They like it. But it took a while for me to realize why I wasn't getting promotions and why I wasn't, advancing within the corporate world, because I was a loudmouth, because, I spoke my mind and I didn't agree with, what everybody else agreed on. So I left the corporate world and again, like I said, haven't turned back and haven't missed it one bit.
If you could encapsulate your experience as a woman working in SEO in one particular story, if you have one interaction example, maybe a client project, something like that, what would that story be?
No, it's always been related to gender in this industry, especially online. Because 90% of the time when people contact us, as soon as they find out I'm a woman, and again, I cannot say yes or no for sure, but as soon as they find out I'm a woman, their reaction is different. I've had a couple of people say, because I've, with email and I won't have a signature, I'll just send out level 343 team, because I have a generic email. And then when I've actually spoken with people, either A, they didn't realize that it was a woman-owned company, or B, they didn't realize I was the woman-run company. So did they react differently? I think a couple did. And I think that's one of the reasons I've brought on a couple of men to the company. I'll admit it. I mean, I wanted to keep it all women, and it's not that there aren't women out there that can do what the guys can do. But whenever there's a battle of, recommendations, and you're paying us, thousands of dollars to give you recommendations, and if it's coming from me, you don't take it as seriously. But if it's coming from Sante or Doc or Wissam or any of the guys that I work with, there's no question. No question. They don't even question the recommendation. They just do it.
Why is this a necessary conversation? Why is it necessary and good for everyone in the industry, not just for women, to hear more of these women's stories?
Well, I'd like to leave some kind of a legacy, if you will. I'd like to be part of that evolution to where 20 years from now, we won't need to do this anymore. It won't be a topic of discussion. But the only way to make things change is to discuss it, is to talk about it, is to bring it up to your face and say, hey, look, you think you have it easy now? Get out from your mother's house or your father's basement and go out in the world and come back to me in 5 years and tell me you were successful as a woman without having to fight your way through meetings, through, getting a job, being chosen over a male, even though you're much better at doing, that particular, discipline. I mean, I've read, was it you? I don't remember, that sent me an article about this woman who she literally trained this kid, and she was passed over. I think it was you, I forget who it was, but she was a coder. She was a code monkey. And my stomach, and I thought, God, it's still happening. Women are still being passed over when not only do they know the job cold, but they're training the douchebags that are taking over their positions. While they're the ones struggling, I don't think this woman was a mother, but, women were mothers. We're taking care of kids. I didn't have that issue, but I know a lot of women, and you have to balance all of that. Plus, you have to balance the dynamic of owning your own business or going to work and taking care. The guys don't have to do that. And I'm not saying all guys, okay? So please, there's a lot of great dads out there that are single dads, and I know quite a few of them, and they're awesome. Mm-hmm. But in general, especially internationally and globally, the women that are stepping out of that comfort zone, my hat's off to them. And I'm one of those people. I just want to be part of that progression. I started, back in the mid 80s burning my bra, even though we were 10 years late. But I still, I've been doing it back then in college, and I'm going to continue doing it. It's not going to be pretty when I'm 70, but I will continue to burn my bra, damn it.